I race I race the teenagers to my gym because there's 6 treadmills, and if you aren't there, like right as like before school's getting out, you're fucked for the next 5 hours. Like you can't run at all, and you can't walk around because they take up the dumbbells, the treadmills, the bikes, the ellipticals, the squat racks, the bench presses, like everything. All you're left with is the fucking pussy popper machine. Like
You mean the fucking hip abductor?
yeah.
Yeah, the pussy popper. No. I think he's onto something here.
It's like the jaws of life, but for your vagina.
All right, and welcome everyone to the new, funky, fresh Drunken Jurors. It's not really funky or fresh or new. It's the same fucking thing we do every time, but I think we're gonna do it right this time.
This is the first recording of the year for Drunken Jurors.
True.
Yes.
And we're coming in hot because this episode's all about pussy poppers.
In a way,
I think they're actually penis poppers.
yeah. Penis.
Those
smashers.
are called hernias.
I thought hernias were in the belly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are.
Well, I've heard of people getting hernias, like the intestines drop into their testicles.
I think like it's just like your pelvic floor blowing out.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, we're going to be talking about a lot of things, and I'm hoping that's not one of them. But we have some horrible things. Yeah, it's our first serial killer, like big serial killer, like well known. And by well known, I mean probably not as well known as most other serial killers. But I feel like I don't know. He needs to be more known. He's not great.
So I listened to a thing at work while like writing reports, and from what I remember and what like kind of left in my brain, I never wanted to know about this man.
Yeah, so we're talking about Albert Fish. So the cannibal child killer of the 1920s or early 1900s, really. Yeah, so this is going to be part 1, and I mean, yeah, we're just going to go through his early life in this episode, go through some of his earlier crimes, before the like big ones that most people know about, because he did this shit for a very long time. They just couldn't link all of the things to him because they fucking killed him with the electric chair. So spoiler. Yeah. My source, well, actually, I'm Jeff.
I'm Adam.
I'm Nick.
I'm drinking some shit ass whiskey per the usual, and then I'm gonna be switching over to Michelob Ultra because we're healthy boys in 2022.
Yeah, we are.
I absolutely despise Michelob Ultras, but I'm still getting rid of what Garrett left here a while ago, so I'm drinking Michelob Ultra.
I am drinking Real McCoy 12-year rum, and I am using Grace's Christmas gift, the bullet metal things, the ice bullets.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, and then hopefully I'm using Jeff's Christmas gift this weekend.
All right, sources. Adam, what's your source? Even though I don't think you have any.
I do have a source. So I've been very busy lately, so I don't have time to watch any documentary or biography about this man. So I've just been...
the one Nick chose was just fucking words on a screen that he could have read, but he had to listen to it.
I didn't even watch that one.
I have just been reading briefly serialkillershop.com. Everything you need to know about Albert Fish.
There you go. Nick.
I watched a YouTube video by Biographics on Albert Fish. And I also really want to watch this YouTube video that's apparently Norm Macdonald talking about Albert Fish.
Huh.
Yeah.
So I used a couple. I mean, I've listened to quite a few podcasts on Albert Fish. I listened to the one by the last podcast on the left. I've listened to Necronomipods, which I think they had one on him. Maybe it wasn't them. I'm pretty sure it was them though, because I listen to them every week. Big fan. So yeah, my books though were Serial Killers, Confessions of a Cannibal, The Shocking True Story of Depraved Child Killer Albert Fish by Robert Keller. And also, I didn't use this one a whole lot because we'll talk about it here in about 5 seconds after I say it. Albert Fish in His Own Words by John Borowski. But this is with the opening, and I put this in here specifically to piss off Nick. So yeah, Nick, you ready to be mad already?
Yeah, we'll see about it.
This is the new thing. So this is
I'm going into 2022 to de-stress and detox my life. I don't get angry anymore.
This is going to be real bad time for you.
I don't get angry anymore.
Yeah, well, this guy, it's whatever. Everyone can have their own views. That's fine. But this was a wild way to start a book. In 2007, my feature docudrama film based on the life of Albert Fish, called Albert Fish in Sin He Found Salvation, was released on DVD in North America. I still feel that Fish's life and crimes are the most disturbing yet fascinating of all true crime cases in history. In 2010, I was delighted to discover that the Library of Congress opened all 222 containers of Dr. Friedrich Wertham's research files to public research access. It was Dr. Wertham who examined Fish and testified for the defense at Fish's trial in March of 1935. We're going to skip the next parts because it's more of them just explaining that. So Dr. Wertham's files are not only important as an insight into the demented mind of Albert Fish, but they are also important because they draw attention to the gaping holes in the American justice system where authorities fail to apprehend criminals. But then the criminals are given vengeful punishments when they are finally apprehended. When the laws of society fail the public, then they feel they have the right to execute people and pass sentences. I found it interesting that Fish was in the hands of authorities, including New York's Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital, numerous times, and he fooled them all. Fish wasn't highly intelligent, but he was very cunning, which is literally pretty much the same fucking thing.
That's a take. That's definitely a take. So basically what this guy is saying is that the reason they executed Albert Fish was because they felt inferior that they didn't catch him earlier?
No, they just think that they hate that authorities can't apprehend criminals, but then when they do, they just kill them.
Hi, I'd like to introduce you to the Soviet Union and the Russian Federation. And then I would like you to re-examine the American justice system, please.
If an unassuming old man could con the New York City Police Department and prominent psychiatric institutions, then how can our United States of America presume they can guarantee the safety of our own American citizens from others like Albert Fish? The world is inundated? I don't know what that word is. With true life inundated. There you go. With true life cases of parental and relative abuses on children, they have gone on far too long for no one to notice that these often result in physical and psychological trauma for the children and sometimes death. I'm not gonna lie, I think we're pretty aware of it. I don't know, are they expecting everyone to have like a agent in their house 24/7 when they have a kid?
DCFS.
DCFS. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. You know what I mean. Yeah, so it's a long, it keeps going. It gets worse. But that's why I didn't really use this book a whole lot. Also, he just copy pasted all the like stuff. Like half of it is literally like handwritten stuff that he just copied and photocopied onto his book. Like it's still in their writing.
I don't know. It's how old was he when they fucking zapped his ass?
His 60s, I believe.
60s.
Hold on. So he was born in 1870, died in the late 30s. 35 is when he went to trial, I believe. Or no, maybe they did kill him in 35. Let's find out. Scroll. 1936.
So he was 60 something.
Yeah, 66.
The argument can be made that you're that old. Life in prison is fine because you're no longer like a threat. to anything, but like at the same time, like there are crimes that warrant capital punishment.
This was also in the late 1800s, early
No,
1900s,
I agree. I agree.
we had good
Looking-
crime scene investigations.
I agree. Looking back 100 years through the eyes of today's morals is really fucking stupid.
Yeah.
I think
So
we've covered that a
we
lot
have.
on this podcast.
it's really dumb. So that being said, I think today they should have executed Albert Fish if these crimes happened today.
All right. Well, Albert Fish was born in
Heard
Washington, D.
Woo!
Hell yeah!
Hell
Starting
yeah,
22
brother.
off right.
This is the first time I've drank in fucking like 2 months, like a month. It's not as good as I remember it being. Ooh,
Albert Fish was born
Alcohol
in Washington.
or
all of it. Yeah, kinda.
Jeff's over here trying to plow through, and we're over here trying to have a good time. I don't
I'm
know
not
what's
trying
going
to.
on
We
here.
have 22 pages of notes. This is the longest
we're-
outline we've ever
We're
had.
gonna be here till like 8.
Yeah. Albert Fish was born in Washington, D.C. on May 19th, 1870. His birth name was Hamilton Fish, but he changed it to Albert after he got tired of his classmates and friends taunting him with the nickname Ham and Eggs.
Where did
Why?
you get that nickname?
No fucking clue. I don't know if it's from the way he looked. I mean, Ham, obviously, from Hamilton, but maybe because his last name's Fish. I mean, I don't know.
Eggs, ham, and eggs. Eggs? Maybe they thought he was a chicken?
Was he
A coward?
maybe? When did Dr. Seuss come around? and write?
Not then.
I was
the
gonna say.
50s.
Okay,
Maybe,
cool.
maybe his maybe
Maybe they
testicles
were
shaped
before their
weird.
time.
Maybe his testicles were shaped weird.
Like footballs?
Aren't they
Pointy at
supposed to look
both
like-
ends?
Oh no, never mind. I'm gonna
No,
track
not,
by.
we're not talking about ovals. We're talking about full-on footballs that are pointy. I
Oh.
don't know what this means, pointy.
What is this? What is? Why are you Mr. Looking like Mr. Krabs? What the fuck's this?
Getting a little pointy. on
Why does it
both
look like you're
ends.
twisting my nipples?
No, that's this. No, yeah, that's this. This. This is
This is
pointy at both ends.
This is.
So he chose the name Albert. He chose the name Albert because it was one of his siblings' names, but they had died at a young age. His father was Randall Fish, who was 75 years old when Albert was born. And
That man-
43 years older than his mother.
That man had some strong swimmers.
Yeah, they were like
Fucking-
fish.
God
He had some real pink salmon.
His father was a riverboat
What
captain.
if it was pink? That's gross.
Yeah,
Now I want to
that-
throw up.
I think that's called a UTI.
No, they were pink
If you wanna throw
because
up
of his
already.
pointy-ended testicle.
If you want to throw up already, we're about to have a real bad time in part
No,
two.
no, no. I'll be fine with all of that. It's the pointy testicles. and the pink,
as long
the
really
pink
as long as
sperm.
there's no eye shit, we're good.
Nick's okay with the rapings and killings of children, but
you
you
stick
bring
it-
an eyeball into this.
Oh yeah.
He's out.
If you stick a needle in the eye, I'm done. It's off. I'm walking away.
All right. Okay.
That is satire for the FBI agent listening.
Nick's over here like, oh, you want to gnaw on that penis like a fucking hot dog at a carnival fair? Love it. Put a needle near an eyeball. Can't have that shit around here.
His father was a riverboat captain and died 5 years after his birth, and this caused him and his siblings to be sent to an orphanage as their mother couldn't take care of them at the time. This is where everything happens. This is
Okay.
where we start to find out how fucked up Armin Meaves is. Or Armin Meaves, Jesus fuck. Albert Fish. This is where he develops all of his perversions, and so his masochism, his fucking sadism, his everything. Because
Those are called kinks, Jeff. All right, we don't shame those here.
what about pedophilia?
We should shame that one. I think we should shame that one.
Me too, buddy.
Yeah.
So the Fish family had a long history with mental illness, and a big thing of that mental illness being religious mania. But this was nothing compared to Albert, though, as he had a lot of issues in the orphanage. This orphanage, well, like all of them back then, was known to whip and beat the kids. There are stories of Albert like purposely getting in trouble so he can get spanked and whipped. And I think there was a time he literally ejaculated while being like watching another kid like get spanked. He was fucked up, and it was fairly young too. Like, yeah, because this all happened before he was 10.
I remember the whippings back when I was 9.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's probably because you're trying to block him out because you don't like him. Albert Fish would have fucking
Now,
loved that shit.
here's the thing: were the whippings by nuns with rulers or priests with penises?
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for taking the bait.
I don't know which is worse, but I guess it depends on.
Well, the nuns did stop me from being left-handed, so
hot. My parents stopped me from being left-handed. Not intentionally, but
so in 1879, Fish's mother got a government job that allowed her to liberate her children from the various institutions in which they had been placed, because they didn't all go to the same one. The damage to young Albert, though, had already been done, and the boy had developed a number of disturbing behaviors, including a compulsion for drinking urine and eating feces. This is a thing that follows him his entire life. He is fascinated with this. Just fucking drinking piss and eating shit.
How did he not die of dysentery? It's the 1800s. You got dysentery from eating anything.
Man, I don't fucking know.
How is he the one to dodge the dysentery bullet?
So he also enjoyed both inflicting and receiving pain. The latter usually administered. Oh my god, administered. Jesus
administered.
Fuck.
It's okay.
With a nail-studded paddle or a homemade cat o' nine tails. Yeah, this guy did a lot of disturbing things that we'll be getting into here in a couple minutes, most likely.
I want to go home.
You are home. Shut the fuck up.
I don't want to be here.
No one wants to be here. It's a bad time here. By the age of 12, Fish was regularly visiting public baths to secretly watch young boys undress, and he was also involved in his first homosexual relationship.
The age of 12?
Yep.
Huh.
Public baths. Imagine that was still a thing.
I would never bathe. I can't pee standing next to someone.
You got that pee anxiety.
Yeah. Fucking literally took 2 years in college to break through that.
So in 1890, Fish moved to New York City and began working as a painter and decorator. This occupation suited him perfectly as it gave him access to apartment buildings where there were always unattended children, because he's got to diddle the kids. He soon developed an efficient MO, luring young boys down into basements where he'd attack and rape them. Even then, the wily criminal hedged his bets. Usually he targeted black children, knowing that the police were less likely to investigate a complaint by them, because yet again, it's the early 1900s or late 1800s, early 1900s. Things weren't a good time. He also regularly visited brothels where he'd pay to be whipped and beaten, because I guess at a brothel you don't ask questions.
Is he still 12?
No, this is in 1890. He's 20 at the point this time.
Okay.
In 1898, Fish met and married a woman named Anna, who was 9 years younger than him. The couple would end up having 6 children: Albert, Anna, Gertrude, Eugene, John, and Henry. The most 1800 fucking names I've ever heard in my life.
I read that marriage was actually set up by his mother. So like this wasn't something he like sought out.
Okay, yeah. I could see that. I didn't hear that, but I mean, it could be true. I didn't know anything about it. Didn't go into it. So during this time, he does a lot of fucked up shit. He's molesting kids during pretty much his entire life. Like, there's not a time where he doesn't end up molesting someone. I think by the time he died, he said he had molested over like hundreds of children.
He was the Bill Cosby of molesting kids.
Apparently.
So was Bill Cosby.
He mostly molested
that joke.
And that's gonna age pretty well, I think, actually.
I think so, actually. Yeah. Didn't he just get out of prison?
Yeah. And that joke honestly can only get better.
Yeah, right.
So he would mostly molest boys younger than the age of 6. There was one time There's one time there's an incident in which a male lover took him to a waxwork museum where Fish was fascinated by a bisection of a penis. And then that's where he developed his sexual mutilation fetish, or kink, as Nick would like to call them.
I think we can.
We shaming that one too?
I think, we'll knock that one below furries.
Huh.
Yeah.
So wait, is furries more okay than sexual mutilation, or
Is it self-mutilation?
no? Well, I mean, he does self-mutilate himself, yes.
So self-mutilation, you can kind of just, we can keep that below furries. And other mutilation, we will knock that above.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to continue ranking kinks. I don't know if I want to be put on record with this.
Nick's number one. Golden
in
showers.
In 1903, he was arrested for grand larceny and convicted for it. Then around 1910, when he was working in Wilmington, Delaware, he met a 19-year-old man named Thomas Keaton. He took Keaton to where he was staying, and the two began a sadomasochistic relationship. But it wasn't clear if Fish forced him to do that or not. But from what I know about Albert Fish, probably. But later on, when he confesses, he implies that he does imply that the man was intellectually disabled.
Yeah, that checks.
So after 10 days, Fish took Keaton to an old farmhouse where he tortured him. And he tortured him for over 2 weeks. Then he eventually tied him up and cut off half of his penis. Just gonna let that one sink in for a second.
Which half? Did he cut it in half, like
Hot dog or
horizontal
hot dog or hamburger?
Yes,
Again, going back to Armin Meaves.
Is he
did
like
he cut it hot dog or hamburger?
Did he like lizard's tongue it, or did he?
Oh God!
I quit. I'm done.
Fuck.
I quit.
What if he lizard tongued it and then got a blowjob by a girl with a lizard tongue?
I'm just drinking.
I'm
now.
done.
I'm
done.
Drink.
Further to that. So he did originally intend to kill Keaton, cut up his body and take it home, but he feared that the hot weather would draw attention to him. So instead, he poured peroxide over the wound, wrapped it in a Vaseline-covered handkerchief, and left a $10 bill, kissed Keaton goodbye, and left.
At least he kissed him goodbye. You always kiss the homies goodnight.
We're never going to be a popular podcast. I'll keep it in. Jesus Christ.
Honestly, I'm kind of proud of that joke.
There's not enough alcohol in the world.
So then in 1917, Fish's wife did something completely wild and eloped with their lodger, who was a handyman named John Stroop. So yeah, like they rented out a room in their house, and then she just basically started fucking him, and then he found out. And I read that like he found out, so he kicks him out of the house and her, but she comes back and she complained that Straub, whatever, John was beating her. So she was like, begged him for forgiveness, and he let her back in, just to find out later, because he realized there was less and less food on the table, and like the leftovers were never in the fridge. And his dog one night was like freaking out, and he was like, what the fuck? And like he followed it, and it was like started sniffing and barking at the attic. So he went up there, but it was completely dark, and he literally tripped over the dude. She snuck him back into their house and had him squatting in their attic.
That's fucking terrifying, dude.
And he literally sat him down at the dinner table across from him, and then told both of them to get the fuck out of his house.
Some fucking inglorious bastard shit.
But then one day while he was working, he gets one of his kids shows up or something and says, Dad, Mom took all of the stuff. And he goes back home, and they literally sent the kids to the movies, and while the kids were at the movies, they stole all the furniture and pawned all of it. So he came home to a completely empty house.
This is wild.
And then there was a later time where he was walking, and he went past like some house that was under construction, and he saw John, and he chased him up the ladder, and the house was under construction, and John jumped down, like ran and jumped down the stairs, and fucking Fish chased him, but he got away. He's like, this isn't worth it, and said fuck it, and went home. Wild times.
This is quite bizarre.
But by all accounts, Fish was a devoted and loving parent who worked hard to provide for his large family. But however, the desertion of his wife seemed to trigger an escalation in his madness. His religious mania in particular intensified. On one occasion, he spent an entire night laying on the floor wrapped in a carpet. And then when asked why he was doing it, Fish explained that he had been instructed to do so by John the Apostle. So, pretty worth it.
Completely random fun fact that no one's ever asked for. That's actually my favorite gospel.
Huh.
Yeah. Favorite gospel's Book of John. It's weird. It's like a fucking run-on sentence.
Is that why you like it? Because you also don't know how to use punctuation.
Don't know.
So this is also where he started to inflict like self-harm, or not indulge himself in it. There were times that he would play games with his kids where they would like, if he would tell them like put like a hand behind their back and put up a number of fingers, and if he guessed wrong, they had to like whip him with a cat of nine tails or spank him with a board with nails in it.
So how many of his kids turned into serial killers?
From what I know, none, but I haven't really looked into it.
Because I feel like after that, how the fuck do you have a normal life?
He also at times would he liked arson at one point, and he would take toilet paper and douse it in like rubbing alcohol or something, and then stuff it in his ass and light it on fire. Yeah. So that was the thing he did. And then of course there's the famous one that most people know when they think of Albert Fish, which is he would stick needles into his taint.
It's like somehow worse than the penis.
It's not worse than the penis.
I don't know, it might be because of the nerve endings, but yeah, he just
not good.
After they catch
I
him,
don't
they
need
take
my taint. I do need my penis.
Debatable. But there's the famous X-ray of his like crotch region, and it's just I think there was like 19 needles that have been stuck in there for years, and some of them had even rusted and like snapped in half and stuff inside of his body because he couldn't get them out. How he didn't die from tetanus, I'll never know. Hey, we already grossed Nick out, and we're not even through his fucking early life.
Hell
We're not even to the real bad part.
Now, see, I'm going to look up a picture.
Yeah, type in Albert Fish needle X-ray.
Albert Fish taint. I want to see that first. Oh, it's only an X-ray.
Oh boy.
Yeah, they didn't just take a picture of his cock.
I kind of wanted to see a picture of his cock. Ooh, yikes! I don't know what to say now.
Yeah, you regret your fucking decisions yet?
I'm gonna have to burn my computer down.
I'm gonna have to just give up on life. A good amount of what I'm reading right now is just straight copied from the book because they word it really nice, and I like to read easy things. But there's a good portion of this that is just my interpretation from the book. So another time, he climbed a hill and stood shouting at the moon over and over again, "I am Christ, I am Christ." So yeah, and then like I said, this is when his self-harm increases. There was a time that on occasions that he'd even encouraged the kids to beat him while he was crouched on all fours on the floor. So the reason he inserted the needles into his taint was because he tried inserting the needles directly into his testicles, but that pain was way too intense for even a seasoned masochist.
Yeah. Yeah, Nick, remember when you said, I wonder what's worse?
If you
That's
stick
worse.
needles into your football-shaped testicles,
with the
worse.
pointy ends.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
So Fish's favorite
That's
criminal
why
act-
they're pink, is because he's inserting rusty needles into his testicles. That
So
pink smegma.
Can we take
Oh
like a
my-
2-year-long break from fucking cannibals?
No.
we got to do the Donner Party at some point.
All right, I'm fine with the Donner Party. They didn't eat penis.
You don't know that.
They probably didn't. They were Mormon.
You don't know that.
They might have ate penis.
It was probably stewed. They might not have ate the penis, but it was probably like a broth.
Maybe they did like Fear Factor style penis eating. Like just little slices, and they go.
They slice it real thin like a fucking cucumber.
like a potato chip of penis.
Yeah. Like a Lay's potato chip. They deep fried that shit. Why are we talking about this?
The penis,
Fish's...
the penis lays, and then it gets laid.
So Fish's favorite criminal activity was writing obscene letters. Usually he'd find his targets for these disgusting letters through different agencies or by scouring the classified pages of various newspapers. His preferred targets were landladies offering rooms for rent. In these letters, Fish would often present himself as a successful Hollywood producer looking for a place to board his teenage son. He usually presented the boy as well-built but mentally deficient and in need of constant discipline.
What the fuck?
He'd then go on to describe exactly how and how often he expected the boy to be beaten, and if the landlady was agreeable, and many were, given the large sums of like money that he would offer, because Fish always had a shit ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Fish would follow up with another and then another letter, and each letter would become more and more graphic and depraved. Eventually, he would introduce his other obsessions into the equation, suggesting that he would like to drink the women's urine and eat their feces.
Oh, that's all? Like that was his only stipulation?
That was his long-term goal the entire time, was to eat their shit.
I hate it here.
Man, women out here looking for people who will eat ass. Goddamn. They should have just lived in the 1900s or the early 1900s. Those men were willing to eat feces.
At any point.
There was one letter that he addressed to a Mrs. Edna Solard. She handed it over to the police in September of 1930. Fish was he fucked up and provided a return address on the letter, like a dum-dum.
Oh, I didn't know he was stupid.
And then he was arrested. While he was in custody, he admitted to writing the letters and explaining it was a sort of habit he had. He was sent to Bellevue for psychiatric evaluation and spent 30 days before being released.
Yeah, why not?
The staff at the clinic considered him to be eccentric, but harmless.
Eccentric.
No,
Okay.
those are C's. This is the English language. I'll fucking pronounce it how I want. Bitch.
Okay.
All right, so here is the full list that after he was arrested and like he went through his psychiatric evals. These are all the perversions that he was labeled with. And I'll give you the definition of them, or what the fetish is. Sadism, which is the infliction of pain and bodily injury for sexual satisfaction. Masochism, which is having others inflict pain on oneself in order to obtain sexual pleasure. Active and passive flagellation.
Self-flagellation.
Flagellation.
Self-harming.
Yeah. No, it's whipping or being whipped.
Well, self-flagellation is doing it to yourself. Flagellation is just being whipped.
Self-castration and castration, the cutting off of one's own genitals or those of another.
Yummy.
Exhibitionism, which is showing oneself in the nude, usually done when standing in the window. Voyeur acts, peeping and looking at others who are either nude or who perform sexual acts.
Oh.
I do not know how to pronounce this one. Piqueur? Piqueur. But it's the sticking needles in others or into oneself for sexual motives. Paediophilia, which is sexual or pedophilia, but it was spelled real weird back then apparently. Sexual acts with children. It's spelled Paedofifhi.
I got no fucking clue.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just copied it wrong or something.
Maybe we're stupid.
Yeah, well, that's highly likely.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
That's true. Facts. Carfax.
Homosexuality, sexual relations with one's own sex. Penil. I should have fucking gone over these. Jesus. Peliniccio. Penil. I have no idea, but it's the application of mouth to penis. And then fellatio, which is the same.
Yeah.
So we're just going to cut out the one I fucked up. Fellatio, which is the application of mouth to a penis. Cunnilingus, application of mouth to female genitals. Analingus, which is mouth to rectum. Coprophagia, which is the eating of feces. Undism? I don't know. But playing with urine. Fetishism, abnormal preferences for one body part or one part of the body, such as buttocks for inanimate objects, and cannibalism.
Sounds pretty standard.
Yeah, you know, the usual when you look into a serial killer, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the.
Yeah, I see nothing new here.
I think like the thing that really stands out to me with this guy is the fact that he's a sadomasochist, which is pretty rare in the first place. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I thought someone was going to have more for that. But...
It's. I don't know. I don't know enough about sexual stuff like that. That was never my interest or research.
That's what they
segment.
Say.
Well, I mean, most serial killers are like, or
receive some form of sexual gratification from it.
Well, it's like sadism though, like inflicting the pain on like Ted Bundy and like literally any of them, like Richard Chase, like not Richard Ramirez.
Night Stalker?
Right? Yeah.
Richard Ramirez.
Which one was Richard Chase?
Oh, I've never heard of him.
One day. 1919, Fish stabbed an intellectually disabled boy in Washington, D.C. He, like I said, he mostly went for either black children or mentally handicapped because most people didn't believe them or they wouldn't say anything anyways. And also that he thought they wouldn't be missed if they were killed. He also one of his tactics was to pay other kids to bring him kids.
Ooh.
That's a common thing. That's pretty common, though.
Mm-hmm. The instruments he used mostly were a meat cleaver, a butcher knife, and a small handsaw. On July 11th, 1924, Fish found 8-year-old Beatrice Keel playing alone on her parents' farm on Staten Island. He offered her money to come and help him look for rhubarb.
All right.
When she was about to leave the farm, her mother chased Albert away, but he returned later and tried to where he tried to sleep, but was discovered by their family and forced to leave. He tried to sleep in their barn. Like he just came back. He was like, "I'll get away with it this time if I just sleep in their barn," as if they're now not on edge because they just had to chase away a pedophile from their kid.
It happens to the best of us, Jimbo.
Don't make mistakes in the heat of passion.
Amen.
3 days later, he killed Francis McDonald. We'll go into these first couple crimes in this episode because there's a lot to go through still for the second episode. But so yeah,
I'm cool if we don't.
No, we will. Nick, we're going through all of it today.
I know. I can hope. I can wish. I can dream.
No, you
so
can't.
Monday, July 14th, 1924, in Port Richmond, New York. Anna McDonald, who was the wife of a New York City police officer, was out on the porch of her house. She was there with her children, Francis, who was 8, Albert, who was 5, and then 1-month-old Annabelle. While she was outside, an old man who was about 5.5 feet tall was walking down the sidewalk. More of a shuffle because, old.
As old people do.
Yeah. He had a gray mustache and was wearing poor clothing. He was muttering to himself and kept clenching and unclenching his fists. He raised his hat to her in a form of hello, and then he headed towards the Charlton Woods and went out of sight. She just saw this man walking down her sidewalk, and then he just disappeared into the woods.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't see the issue here.
Oh.
Later on that day, Albert and Francis went out near the Charlton Woods to play with some of the other neighbor kids. They were playing with a ball when that old man, aka Albert Fish, came to the edge of the tree line and watched. He looked around for a while, but he eventually kept his eye on Francis, and when he noticed that he was looking at him, he motioned for him to come to him. It was around 4:30 at this point because a neighbor, George Stern, saw the two talking, and then they walked into the woods, and the old man was checking to make sure no one saw or followed. For some reason, I don't know why this wasn't a part of the investigation, or why he thought this was just an okay thing or normal, but whatever, different time.
Why not?
So obviously 1920s people were more trusting, so George Stern just assumed Francis knew the man and didn't think anything of it at the time. But later that night, when Albert went home and no one was asking where Francis was until they had dinner, Albert then told his mother about the old man Francis went with. At this point, Arthur had returned home from his shift with the police department, who is Francis's dad. So he went out searching for him while still in uniform. A large group of people ended up getting together, and they searched all night but never found anything. The next morning, 3 Boy Scouts actually found the body. The body laid a few hundred yards into the woods, inadequately concealed under a pile of leaves and broken branches, and Francis had been severely beaten and then strangled to death with his own suspenders, which had been pulled so tightly around his throat that they'd cut into his flesh and drawn blood.
I remember reading that the investigators, it looked like the suspenders had become part of him.
Yeah. His shorts and underwear had been violently ripped from his body and left him naked from the waist down. This strongly suggested a sexual motive for the crime, something that was later hinted at in the New York dailies, but never officially confirmed. That is all word from the book, by the way. It took only hours to have 50 officers there, along with the chief of detectives and the head of homicide squad. The next day, 250 officers were assigned to the case, and Francis's dad was transferred from his department to that department to work the case.
That's wild.
1920s policing was way different.
That's insane that they're just all right, yeah, we'll put you on the same case as your
Dead son.
Yeah. Okay.
So they did go door to door, along with taking in tips. Although everything they got was pretty much useless. With the info given, a lot of people had run-ins with creepy old men, so they were all useless. People were just calling in creepy old men they saw, or people that they didn't like that were
creepy old
men.
Dudes.
Yeah, they were just calling in on people. They're like, I think this guy molests boys, and it's like,
he's kind of spooky.
Then with the autopsy report, it made it seem like the killer was not an old man based on the beating that Francis had received. They had suspects, but no good ones, which put the case at a standstill for quite a while. Actually, this case is at a standstill until Albert Fish is arrested for a different crime and he confesses to it.
It's wild.
3 years later, February 11th, 1927, Billy Gaffney, who was 4 at the time, and his best friend Billy Beaton, who was 3, or Beaton, were playing in the corridor of the tenement building that they were neighbors of. And then Johnny McNiff, who was 12, joined them out in the corridor playing. But then Johnny had to go take care of his sister, and then when he came back minutes later, both of the boys were no longer there. Billy Beaton's father came out of the apartment. He asked Johnny where the boys were. He said he didn't know, but they may be at the Gaffneys. So they went and checked, but they weren't there either. So Billy's father then ran downstairs and checked the street, found nothing. Then he ran up to the roof. Once he was there, he found his son standing at the ladder to the roof. He asked where they had gone, and Billy said that they were on the roof. He asked if Billy Gaffney was still up there, and his son said no. He asked him where he was, and his son said the boogeyman took him.
Fair. No. I agree.
By the time police arrived, the tenants had already searched the entire building, but the police searched again and found nothing, and then set up a task force who set it up like an abduction case, except the Gaffneys were extremely poor, so they didn't think that there would be a ransom. They thought it was more likely that he had just wandered off. They looked for him for weeks with up to 350 officers searching. With this being one of the largest police searches in New York history, they found nothing. Billy was the only one with useful info, but it was about the boogeyman, and no one was arrested for 6 years. And no one believed him because he was so young at the time. But they finally believed him later when he got older because, now the fucking information's true.
Fucking wild.
Around a month later, a trolley conductor, Anthony Barone, told police that on the 11th at around 7 p.m., he had stopped the trolley at Prospect and Hamilton Avenue, which is just 2 blocks from the Gaffney residence. There was an elderly man and a child matching Billy's description who both boarded, and he noticed them because the child was crying and wearing only a t-shirt and shorts in February in New York City.
Okay. Fucking hell.
They went to the end of Hamilton Avenue, and the old man asked for directions to the Staten Island ferry. This was all backed by the passengers of the trolley, but ended up going nowhere. They got so desperate they tried to use a psychic and a mechanical bloodhound, but they still got nothing.
Hold up. The fuck's a mechanical bloodhound?
I don't know, but in the book they said they tried to use a mechanical bloodhound, which was made by some crackpot in New York. That is literally the exact wording: is some crackpot made it.
Bet you it was Tesla. Not Tesla. Yeah, Nikola. Yeah. For some reason I thought Tesla and I thought Elon Musk, and I'm like, that's not it.
Honestly, he could be that old. He could have just never die.
It's a possibility.
Immortal.
No.
It could be immortal. That's the word I was looking for.
I'm curious as to what you're dripping down.
Never ever speak another word again, Nick.
No, we don't do dripping anymore.
It's Yolky.
It's Yolky.
So this leads to the third crime, the one that the big one, the one that ends up getting him caught. So in May of 1928, I'm just reading most of this straight from the book here. It's the whole story of what happened. So in May of 1928, Edward Budd was a part-time truck driver, but he wanted a permanent job. He wanted to get a job in the country for the summer, so he put an ad in the classified sections of the New York World. On May 25th, he put in the ad reading, "Young man, 18, wishes position in the country, Edward Budd, 406 West 15th Street." At around 3:30 p.m. Monday, Albert Fish, who called himself Frank Howard at the time, arrived at the Budd apartment, and he arrived at the Budd apartment where Delia Budd answered. He then told her that he was responding to the ad Edward put in the paper. She tells him that he came to the right place, and he tells her that his name is Frank Howard, and he has an offer for her son that he might like. She welcomed him in, told him that Edward was over at a friend's house, and that she would send her daughter to get him. Albert was very happy, almost excited, when he saw 5-year-old Latrice, and said that she reminded him of his grandpa's daughter and ruffled her hair.
Fucking people can't take a hint.
Yeah. He then gave her a nickel, and she thanked him and then left to get her brother. A few minutes later, Edward arrived with his friend Willie Corman, and Albert was seated drinking lemonade.
What do you think a nickel could have bought you then?
Quite a bit, because $2 got you to the movies for 2 people. So we'll get to that. So a few minutes later, Edward arrived with his friend Willie Corman, and Albert was seated drinking lemonade. He introduced himself and said that he had been a painter in Washington, D.C. and had saved money so when he couldn't do his trade anymore, he could buy a small farm in Farmingdale, Long Island. He continued to say that his wife hated the country life and abandoned him and his 6 kids. He said he made enough to have a cook and 5 farm hands, but one had left and he was looking to replace them. He told him it would be hard work, but he would pay them $15. He would pay him $15 a week, which was a lot at the time.
Yeah.
Edward then asks if Willie can come along, and Albert thinks for a second, then agrees and tells him that he would pick them up Saturday afternoon, and then he left. Let's find out. $15 in 1928 is how much now? It is about $244.56 today.
It's wild that works. Well, whatever. It hurts my brain. It hurts me physically.
It checks out.
But on Saturday, Albert did not pick them up, which caused Edward and Willie to hang around all day and then think that they had been played. But later in the afternoon, a delivery boy had brought a Western Union that said, I have been in New Jersey, call in morning.
All right.
The reason Albert didn't pick them up Saturday was he had to push his plans back a day in order to complete his preparations. He bought tools at Sobel's pawn shop on 2nd Avenue. He also ran into the problem of having to try to figure out how to overpower both of them when they were both much younger and stronger than him. But he still thought that he could do it because he thought he had the element of surprise, and he had been doing this kind of thing for a long time, as we all know. At around mid-morning on Sunday, June 3rd, Frank Howard disembarked from the subway at 14th Street. He carried a package under his arm in red and white striped canvas. In it, the tools he would use to butcher the bodies. In his other hand, Howard carried another recent purchase, a small white enamel pail. He had a couple of purchases to make before he got there, and the first of those was transacted at a German delicatessen, where he paid to have his pail filled with fresh pot cheese. What the fuck that is, I have no fucking clue. But it sounds
Adam, no.
I think it's cheese made of pot.
No.
Fucking knock that off.
What is pot cheese?
It's work of the devil.
It is a type of soft, crumbly, unaged cheese.
Yeah, I was right.
It's somewhere between cottage cheese and farmer cheese. Then he went and he bought some ripe strawberries. And then he finally stopped at a newspaper stand to buy a copy of the New York World. And then he also asked the stall owner for a favor. And it was just to hold his package for him. That package is the red and white canvas that had all the butchering tools in it.
Yeah, that checks out.
So at around 11, he knocked on the door, and Miss Budd greeted her son's new employer warmly, then accepted his gifts of cheese and strawberries with delight. He told them that they were from his farm and that I guarantee that you've never tasted sweeter strawberries nor finer cheese, when he literally bought them down the street.
Everything sounds like a sexual innuendo, and I hate it. I don't like it.
There inside, Miss Budd introduced Howard to her husband, aka Howard Fish. And her husband was still dressed in his best suit.
And did he have any thoughts rattle through his little brain?
No, actually, we'll get to that here in a second, because he's actually kind of, I'm not going to say the one to blame, but he does make a bad decision here in a second. So she left both of them in the lounge while she went to finish making like a meal for all of them. But Fish told her husband that he was in New Jersey to look at some horses that were for sale. And then he asked if he still had the Western Union that he sent. And the husband says, yeah, it's over there on the mantle. Then they went to have lunch. He snuck it into his pocket. So
what the shit?
As Fish was eating, Grace, who was age 10, had just returned home And when he saw her, he froze, like spoon to mouth, just stopped and stared at her. She was in her church outfit of a white dress, white stockings, white pumps, and a fake pearl necklace.
I give up. I quit. I'm done. I think I'm done with this podcast. I think it's officially time I retire.
She smiled shyly at him as her mom introduced him as Mr. Howard, and then Fish patted his knee and asked her to come over. She stood next to him as he asked her questions, and then he started to stroke her hair while telling her that she was pretty and charming. He grabbed her a bundle of bills and said, "Let's see how good of a counter you are." The buds were amazed and impressed by all the money, as they hadn't seen that much very often. She counted out $92, and then he made her count 50 cents of coins, which he then gave her while telling her to go buy candy for her and her sister, and her and her sister left.
They are the stupidest people I've ever heard of.
When Willie and Edward arrived, they apologized for not being there. Oh my God. When Willie and Edward arrived, Fish apologized for not being there Saturday and then told them that he would not be taking them today because his sister is throwing a birthday party for his niece. He then gave them $2 and told them to go to the movies and that he would pick them up on his way home tonight. When Grace returned, he thanked the buds and told them that he must be leaving. He then asked if Grace could accompany him to the party, as she is at the same age as his niece and there would be a lot of other girls her age there. And he promised to have her home by 9. Miss Bud was going to say no, but Mr. Bud said that she should go because she doesn't get to have many good times as they are poor.
Like a reasonable human being.
They asked where his sister lived, and Fish said 137th Columbus, and they agreed. After that, they left and retrieved his package from the newspaper stand. But Grace never returned home that night, and the buds started to worry. And they just assumed that she stayed the night, but when she wasn't home the next morning, they sent Edward to the police station, and he filed a missing persons report. And that is where we are going to stop, as we will pick up in part 2 on picking up from what happens after that to Albert Fish being caught, and then his confessions and his trial, and then his inevitable execution.
I'm cool if we just don't.
No, we have to.
This episode has caused me a great deal of pain.
We'll get after it, kid. We got another one. So, I mean, I guess I'm going to ask anyways, but how are we feeling after this? What's our thoughts so far on what's happened? Any thoughts on the beginning here?
I
didn't want to know this much about penis touching.
I mean,
diddling?
Lizard tongue penises.
Wow, you guys really picked up a lot. You guys probably passed college from flying colors.
Yeah.
I graduated.
Yeah. C's gets degrees.
Gang.
I do not like adults diddling chittles.
I agree. I'm
glad that this podcast can back
adults stop diddling chittles. You heard it here first.
Diddling chittles.
I don't think we're the first.
I think we should make that our official podcast platform.
Stop diddling chittles.
Yes.
Stop diddling kids. We'll only cover pedophiles from now on. Thanks, Nick. New route.
I don't like this anymore.
We found our niche.
I'm
chittle diddlers.
No longer a fan.
Drunken Jurors, the podcast about chittle diddlers.
What the fuck? Who are you?
We're renaming it Chittle Diddlers and You.
Why do you?
I think we're gonna get the wrong populace. Actually, that might be good. We might actually catch some fucking pedophiles that way. New patron exclusive for $50 a month.
It's just
We're like-
we can get Chris
we're-
Hansen.
hold on.
It's how to
Hold
catch a
on.
predator.
No, it's $50 a month, and we're essentially the TV show Catfish, but for child predators.
Didn't
Yeah,
Chris
Chris
Hansen
Hansen.
end up getting fucking pegged as a fucking kid diddler?
No, I feel like that's a thing that's been said before, but no, I'm pretty sure he's not.
I feel like he got pegged for something. I feel like he might have just gotten pegged, honestly.
I would like to point out really quickly before we end. Earlier in this episode, we made a joke about Bill Cosby touching children, and I'd like to point out, please don't sue us, Bill Cosby's lawyer, if he did not touch children.
Any publicity is good publicity.
Not when you're Bill Cosby.
That's fair. No. You got a point.
No, he was wanted to be arrested for like not giving up evidence or something.
Oh, what an interesting man, Chris Hansen. And by interesting, I mean not at all.
Oh no, he was arrested for larceny. But the charges were dropped.
Who among us hasn't been charged with larceny once in a blue moon?
I've never been charged with larceny.
No. All right. I guess there is someone who can be.
Oh yeah, part 2. We're gonna wrap up the Grace Buds case and then give the later details of what happens with the Francis and Billy case after all that, and then Albert Fish's arrest, how he got arrested, his trial, his confession, and his inevitable death. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening. If you want to follow us on social medias, go down in the description. You can click on our link tree down there, pop up all of the links to all of our social medias, and then at the top of that link tree is become a patron to our Podbean. If you go to our Podbean, click on the become a patron button in the top right hand corner. You can pay $1, $3, $5, $10, $15, increasing for different stuff. It's monthly. $1. We just started this thing this year with Adam and I, where it's You Hate to See It goes to the movies. Monthly, we will be releasing that for the $1 tier, where Adam gives me a movie that I've never seen because I don't watch anything because I'm a piece of shit. And
It's true.
then we
I
review
agree.
it. We review it. Adam gives me some fun little tidbits and like inside info on the making of the movie and some stuff about the actors or whatever. $3, also the $1 tier, you get access to our Discord. $3 tier, you get the unedited video version of this podcast. And yeah, I think that's it.
About it, yeah.
Yeah,
Close enough.
that's all I got for you until next week. So Nick, do the thing.
All right. So,
Do the roar.
Do the roar. Why do you look like that?
That's it.
Why'd you
No,
do it?
That's it.
Nick,
That's
for those
me.
who didn't get to see it on the unedited, Nick literally took his boom arm, put it above his head, cocked it down, and then looked up at it and went, "Rah,"
All right. That's
as if a POV porn shot of girl below the penis.